Hello, everybody. We're here talking about a few things that happened at Georgia Heart Institution, or Institute, I should say. Brings me back. I'll start where so everybody can get an idea on where I'm coming from. A genetic heart disease, and a year ago, she was seeing a cardiac person, and we knew that she had to have a mitral valve repaired. So we went to all these different doctors and places where where she had to get um, different things done so they would know what they would have to do. So appointment after appointment, it was like just unbelievable. It seemed like we went to 8 appointments. Then they decided the cardiologist in Blairsville, Georgia, decided to refer us to Dr. Guy, the Gainesville Heart Institute or Georgia Heart Institute. And when we had a meeting with him or appointment with him, he said that my wife had small veins and arteries. And if he sees, if there's a problem, but they were small, he wasn't sure if he could actually do the robotic. Did he have permission to do an open heart surgery? And we said yes. So on June 12th, she went in for the operation. And during the operation, he did the robotic below her, like down by the femoral artery, is where they did this incision before the robotic surgery because it had to go through a heart pump. So they were attached two tubes, one in the femoral, one to the vein, and then they were ready to go. And then there's 3 laparoscopic type surgery, um, small incisions in 3 locations in her upper area. Uh, After the operation, they noticed that there was a problem where they put the tubes in and she wasn't getting, they kind of like kinked, kind of like putting a pencil in a coffee straw, and it kind of wrecked the sides of the vascular part. So they found out that the blood wasn't going down to her leg, and they had to go in and fix it. Otherwise, they said, "quote she might lose her leg." So she went back in. She was still under anesthesia. By the way, she was under anesthesia for 31 hours, and they tried to fix it. She came out. They noticed it wasn't fixed. She went back in for another surgery. 2 thoracic surgeons. The second thoracic surgeon called me and said, "This is above my expertise. Um, the guy who did this screwed it up." So next, to fix it, they got a plastic surgeon, and Dr. Shaheen. He went in, tried to get a piece of skin or tissue from the upper part of, well, it's basically was a flap from the incision. That didn't work. He had to go back in, and then he kind of ripped out the one of the quad muscles and fixed it. Well, by having her quad muscle removed, there was a big incision, and at the top where her groin is, they had to put a wound vac on it because they had to get it to heal. It was like about 2-3 inches across, and all you saw was the muscle. It looked like a raw piece of meat. So they put a wound vac in, and the advertisement says 3 to 5 days recovery. Well, to me, that's false advertising, in my opinion. She was in the hospital for 51 days. That's it, 51. She was under anesthesia for 31. Okay. She couldn't walk on her own while she was in the hospital. And there was, a little sidebar here. It seemed like doctors and PAs were coming out of the woodwork and going in and seeing about this, seeing about that. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the bill was over $1 million. $1 million. So they wanted to put her in rehab, which was like an hour and a half from where we are. And I said I wanted her in Lake Chateau. Um, they didn't want to put her in Lake. They didn't admit it, but they never called Lake Chateau. So finally, I said I want her discharged. Well, it took 4 days to get her discharged. And people didn't know what the hell they were doing. So with that being said, I took her out of there and brought her home, and the amount of the drugs that she had to take every 8 hours, she needed like saline, heparin, and another concoction every 8 hours. It was like rough. Then after that, she got a UTI, and it was like I didn't know who she was. She was like delusional and so forth. I finally did some research on UTI, and it's terrible. So I finally said I can't do this anymore. So I put her in rehab in Lake Chateau. Lake Chateau was wonderful. They basically got her walking again and so forth. But she was in there like 21 days, and then also 20, 30 days of outside um, rehab and coming to the home, and also the nurse come in and change the bandages, and like 51, 20, you're talking like, all the way till June, July, August, about October, close to November. Right now, she's been walking for about 4 weeks. So from June 12th to 4 weeks ago, she couldn't walk. Her body is mutilated. She has scars. She has where it healed below her abdomen. She is overweight. Her abdomen, her belly does go down over it. The one where Dr. Guy, and I quote, he had to cut under her armpit and put his hand in there to take out the blood clots that were in there. So in the 51 days, besides the blood clots, there was AFib and other problems that she was going through. She had pneumonia. She got pneumonia. It was a nightmare. Now, what I would like to know is they still advertise, and they don't, if you recall, if you look at, when they have a new drug and they put it on TV and they say, don't take it if it does this, 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 your eyeballs fall out, and I'm just being funny about it. But they don't do that with this particular operation. They say there's risk, but they still say that 3 to 5 days of recovery and you're out. And that's not true. Now, with that being said, about 2, 3 years ago, there was another situation where another doctor at the Heart Institute / Georgia Hospital was sued for $3.3 million. Matter of fact, the attorney that sued him is the attorney I have right now. Eventually, I guess it got, eventually left, but basically the hospital stood behind him. But he left, he resigned. But $3.3 million the hospital had to pay. Now they still say 3 to 5 days of recovery and you're out. That didn't help here. And if the drug companies have to put all these different situations and warnings and so forth, the Heart Institute is not doing that. All right. So did Dr. Guy screw up? Did he miscalculate how bad the vein and arteries were? Because after 4 more operations, that kind of proves to me you have to do, if you're in a lab and you got to do the experiment 4 times before you get it right, that's a problem. So right now, besides having a mutilated body, she has a tough time with her one leg. we have to a cardiac doctor at Emory here in Hiawassee. It's been working well. They looked over the medical records, and it's, I know we're very litigious, but they didn't want to say anything, but they kind of looked at it like, and there were four other doctors that said that uh, the Heart Institute really did a number on you. Plus, you had the second vascular surgeon saying that Dr. Guy screwed up. So, I mean, if it, what's that saying? If it walks like a duck, so forth and so on. So, I'm very upset. My wife's 72 years old. And if this was going to be a touchy situation, which it proves in the medical records that it was, why didn't they do the open heart? I mean, what's the difference? She was 51 days in the hospital anyway. Now, my question is this: is the uh, robotic surgery cheaper for the hospital? Um, does the hospital pay only part of the $1 million? Why does Medicare have to pay for some of this when they screwed up 4 times? Well, let me correct that. When they had to do 4 operations to fix it, we won't call it a screw up. So I want everybody to think about this and understand that situations in a hospital are not what you think they are. So I'm going to go to the next phase and explain the doctor that got sued for robotic surgery in a different department and what happened there. As a matter of fact, it was on Fox 5 a few years ago. So, when you have someone say that there's a possibility, now I heard all this stuff like for the administration, there's a risk. My other question is this: when does risk stop and incompetence start? And I told this somebody, and it's kind of like a smart ass remark. It's like, they never told me when I got, and I did get a sinus operation 8 years ago, that the risk of my balls falling off would be there. I mean, how many things would fall off and they just say that's the risk of doing the surgery? Are you, I mean, I can't believe that. So we have to evaluate how far risk goes or can go before we have to say it's not risk anymore, it's incompetence.